What is happening?
It would seem we're in for another fight.
I need to communicate with the Queen, but something's blocking my mind.
Yes, it's like we're being imprisoned in this creature's gaze. We need to break free.
Wait, I got it. Now, run! I still can't locate the Queen, but I'm going to try and reach our other friends. Everyone, can you hear me? I'm not sure if I'm reaching all of you, but I am using the artifacts as a conduit to help me break free from this interference. Some new creatures here, and it has a power that seems to be imprisoning and isolating us. I believe I can use the artifacts to help a select few of you, but I have to limit it to those still in the hunt for the Green Bull, those that can still be the chosen one. I must locate the Queen. The power of the Green Bull must be unlocked.
Welcome to Quest for the Green Bull! Òrdugh, Truaillidh, and here we are in the Semifinals with 4 teams left. And there are 4 teams in the hunt for the Green Bull. Of course, 2 teams with buys are now getting in on the action. And let's get right into the madness as top-seeded Banditos del Rio looks to avoid the upset as the top seed, hosting 5th-seeded Risky Business at the deserts of Maclu. Banditos del Rio and Risky Business both have 9 wins now this season, but Banditos was able to win the Flatlands of Scale division and earn a first-round bye in the playoffs as the top seed. Risky Business had to win in Week 14 just to make it into the playoffs and then pulled off the 5-4 upset last week. The last time these 2 teams squared off was in Week 7, when Banditos won 138.46 to 104.46 in a fairly competitive game. That was the best week by Patrick Mahomes, who had over 40 points that week. And there were some complimentary pieces with Josh Downs scoring almost 20 as well. Risky Business was still recovering from losing Anthony Richardson for the season at quarterback, and the less than 10 points at the position that week was the difference. A lot of changes for both teams since, though. Trades have netted Banditos with 2 new running backs and an upgrade over Downs and Deebo Samuel. Risky Business has had a much better quarterback in play recently. Sam Howell, Kyler Murray, Matthew Stafford, he's been using all 3. and they've been stepping up and scoring decent each week. At the moment, Banditos enters with a 53.4% chance to win in what is expected to be a close one that might come down to just one touchdown or even a few yards. The one thing Risky Business has going is that they won the title back in 2019 in their first year in the league. Banditos Del Rio has never gotten past the semifinals, and of course there's the curse of the number 1 seed that could still be in play with top seeds going 1-7 in this game in the last 8 years. Risky Business's team always depends on Christian McCaffrey, and McCaffrey gets a Christmas night matchup against a good Baltimore defense. DeAndre Swift on the other side goes up against the Giants in a good matchup. Risky Business needs to gain a big advantage in this spot. Risky Business has Matthew Stafford in the lineup right now with a tough matchup against the Saints defense, and that is a position that will be huge. Patrick Mahomes is a great matchup against Las Vegas, but the Chiefs' offense has not lit up scoreboards this year, while the Raiders actually have a pretty decent pass rush, especially with Max Crosby. Jahmyr Gibbs and Joe Mixon have tough matchups on paper for Risky Business, but both should have opportunities to score. Cortland Sutton has done better lately, but always seems to be touchdown dependent. Banditos has Kenneth Walker, who can always break off a big play, while Mike Evans continues to get touchdowns, and Deebo Samuel continues to get beast games with his rushing and receiving prowess. The battle at tight end is very important, with Travis Kelce primed for a big game after several underwhelming performances, and TJ Hawkinson always is a threat to have a big game. The kicker battle is very interesting, with Jake Moody against Blake Grupe going up against each other. Both can get plenty of opportunities, but the key will be field goals and not extra points. The Chiefs' defense has been solid all year and should do well against the Raiders, even after they had 63 points last week against the Chargers, and the Packers' defense gets to beat up on Carolina. But there are 2 players to watch here. For visiting Risky Business, I turn to wide receiver Tyler Lockett. Lockett is having a down year with Seattle. 732 yards and 4 touchdowns only. This is his lowest totals in both those areas since 2017, and his string of 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons with at least 8 touchdowns is looking like it's going to end. But it must be noted that Geno Smith has not been 100% for many of the games this season, including last week when Lockett only caught 3 passes for 21 yards, but he had Drew Lock throwing to him. This is a player that still has big playability and who has a multi-touchdown effort with 8 catches back in Week 2, and 2 other games with over 80 yards and a score, Weeks 8 and 10. Lockett also had around 90 yards in 2 other games in Weeks 6 and 14. So he is certainly capable, especially in a good matchup. With Smith expected back under center, that could be a huge boost for Lockett against Tennessee. The Titans have not done well against wide receivers, allowing 175 receiving yards per game on average and 13 total touchdowns this year. DK Metcalf is clearly a player who can steal production from Lockett, but there might be room for both to thrive here. Lockett's ability to stretch the field could also bode well. The Titans have allowed a receiver to score in all but 4 weeks this season, and they've allowed multiple touchdowns to the position twice in the last 5 weeks. They also have allowed 35 plays of 20-plus yards to wide receivers, including 17 in the last 6 weeks. The Titans have allowed 30-plus fantasy points twice in the last 5 weeks to wide receivers, over 15 points in 4 of the last 5 weeks. If there was ever an area where Lockett could give you one last boost, it's this week. And a big game here could be a huge compliment for Risky Business's squad. Another dud, and it could be the end for their title chances. For Banditos Del Rio, we have to look at trade pickup Raheem Mostert, who he deems Raheem the Dream. Mostert is a touchdown machine, breaking the Miami single-season record for TDs last week. This year has been mind-boggling for Mostert. He's got 966 rushing yards, 171 receiving yards, and 20 touchdowns. He had 19 touchdowns in his 8 previous NFL seasons combined. Where did this even come from? But while the touchdown regression is always possible the next season, there's no indication the production's going to end now in 2023. Mostert has at least 2 touchdowns in 3 of his last 4 games, and he's scored a touchdown in all but 3 games this year. This includes a tough Jets defense that he scored against. Up next is a date with Dallas, and on paper, it is also very tough. The Cowboys have allowed just 8 touchdowns to running backs all season, though they did allow 2 last week to Buffalo, and also allowed 2 to the 49ers back in Week 5. Yard-wise, the Cowboys give up about 88 yards per game to running backs on the ground. Mostert is clearly more of a rushing threat, and Miami is a scoring machine. As we've said, they like to run with goal to go as well. This could mean 3 opportunities to reach the end zone if they get goal to go. They just keep handing it to them, give them the rock. The only competition is Devon Achane, and he tends to get a few series where he takes over and some goal line carries as well. He has big playability, obviously, that could steal production. But Mostert only really loses touches to Achane if he fumbles. Mostert has lost 1 fumble, but he has put the ball on the ground 4 times this year. The Cowboys' defense is a beast when it comes to forcing turnovers, so they will certainly be looking to punch the ball out of Mostert's hands. If Mostert continues to reach the end zone, he'll probably be a Green Bowl MVP candidate and end any doubts that the curse of the number 1 seed is still alive. But if he loses a fumble, gets outplayed by Achane, kept out of the end zone, or any combination of those things, then Banditos could find themselves chasing points somewhere else in what is expected to be a very close matchup. Moving on to the other action-packed semifinal, we get 2nd-seeded Green Acres hosting 6th-seeded the Stellar Bitches at the Bogs of Diamiracht. Green Acres and the Stellar Bitches also both have 9 wins coming in. Green Acres won the competitive Wetlands of our own division, which has 2 teams in the semifinals, and earned the first round bye. The Stellar Bitches backed into the playoffs after falling in the final week to cost her a division title, but she was able to hold on to that 6th seed based on tiebreaker. They quickly regrouped and scored the 6 versus 3 upset last week, getting revenge on Remember the Titans in the quarterfinals. And the last time these 2 teams played each other was in week 4, with Green Acres winning an incredibly low-scoring game, 62.6 to 53.6. The difference in that one was Kyron Williams and his nearly 25 points. Pretty much all the production there. The Stellar Bitches are actually known for scoring big or very low this season. They've scored over 120 points in 4 of the 9 wins. 90. They've scored over 90 in 8 of the all 8 wins actually, or 8 of the 9 wins. The Bitches have under 90 points in 5 of 6 losses and have under 75 points in 4 losses. Green Acres, on the other hand, has over 90 points in 10 matches and over 80 points in all but 2 matches. The worst week came in week 14 with only a top seed to play for. One thing to also keep in mind here, though, 6 seeds are 0-6 in the semifinals in league history. No 6 seed has ever advanced to the Green Bowl. Insane. And the computers are sticking to those trends because Green Acres enters with a 65.7% chance to win. Geno Smith versus Baker Mayfield at quarterback will be huge. Green Acres tends to be the quarterback whisperer, and he seems to be going with Smith here with a better matchup than C.J. Stroud. Mayfield just had a career game against Green Bay and gets another intriguing matchup against Jacksonville. The Stellar Bitches most likely will need to win that positional battle. Kyron Williams has a tough matchup but continues to score touchdowns and get opportunities. Rashad White is also coming on as of late and has been one of the best players for the Stellar Bitches. Green Acres is looking for another big game by running back Ty Chandler, while the Stellar Bitches are going with Alexander Madison for the moment, who seems to be heading toward backing up Chandler if he returns from injury. Tyreek Hill is expected to return, but has a tough matchup. If Hill is limited due to his ankle injury, it will be interesting to see if that affects his speed and his output. But Hill has been a machine when healthy, so you have to think he's going to get a big play or two. Devontae Adams will, of course, be needed to build on last week's performance, but at the moment, Jonathan Mingo is the other wide receiver for the Stellar Bitches, with Keenan Allen still injured. An Allen return would be a boost, as Mingo is a part of a struggling Carolina offense. Garrett Wilson is a part of a struggling Jets offense, but he gets a great matchup against Washington. Dallas Goedert versus Cole Kmet at tight end will be about who can score the touchdown, but Green Acres gets an advantage at kicker, with Greg Zuerlein expected to have lots of opportunities. Evan McPherson could have his share of field goals too, though, with a big divisional game against Pittsburgh. The Battle at defense could bring some points as well. The Bills get a Chargers team that just fired their coach and has been inept with their play calling. Sometimes coaching changes brings a new momentum to a team, so we'll see if there's an effect here. The Bengals get a Steelers offense, which is not a team that can score a lot, and they tend to turn the ball over. But while we could get some interesting scores throughout these lineups, there are two players that I look to as very interesting keys, especially for the visiting bitches. For the 6th seed here, I'm looking at running back Bijan Robinson, who put up an all-time playoff dud last week. Robinson had 14 yards and lost a fumble to finish with negative points. He had 2 other clear duds this season besides this one, but he has had double-digit fantasy points in 8 games, including a multi-touchdown performance in Week 12 against the Saints. The Stellar bitches need big games from her stars, and I'm not sure she can survive another bad performance by Robinson. She'll be hoping for that double-digit magic again here. Overall, Robinson's season has been decent. Maybe not first-round draft pick great, but definitely solid. He has 1,124 total yards and 7 touchdowns. And things could be in his favor against a Colts defense that has allowed some big games by running backs this season. The position averages 104 yards per game and has scored 14 times on the ground against the Colts. Though it must be noted, 11 of those 14 touchdowns came in the first 8 weeks of the season, so they've shored some things up. Still, they've allowed over 110 yards on the ground 3 times in the last 5 weeks and over 104 of the last 5 weeks. It seems unlikely that Robinson won't be able to bounce back from last week's performance, and that would be a big momentum boost for the Stellar bitches' chances at making history here as the 6th seed. But if Robinson doesn't, it could be extremely detrimental to any hope at the upset. For Green Acres, I'm looking at the running back on the opposite team in the same game as Robinson, Jonathan Taylor of the Colts. Taylor missed the first 4 weeks of the season with a holdout and was eased back into the lineup for 2 weeks. But since week 7, he has had double-digit rushing attempts in every game he's played. He's scored double-digit fantasy points in all those games as well. The problem is that Taylor missed the last 3 weeks with an injury and still needs to be monitored. Overall, he has 414 rushing yards, 137 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns in this short sample size. His last game, he had 91 yards and 2 scores against Tampa Bay in Week 12. I'm sure Green Acres would love that. If he returns, he doesn't get an easy test, though. He goes up against a Falcons defense that allows about 84 yards on the ground per game. The other big thing, they've allowed no touchdowns on the ground to running backs. Zero. That's insane. They've allowed 4 touchdowns through the air to running backs, but yards are still limited with just 30 yards through the air per game. If there's anyone to sneak in a goal-to-goal touchdown, it's Taylor, but this is certainly a place to watch in this lineup. If Taylor is cleared to play and gets back to double-digit rushes, the volume alone should help his score even against a tough defense. But if he is limited in any way and or is stopped by the Falcons' defense, this could end up being a huge momentum swing in this matchup. It could swing the projections just like that. So as you can see, there are question marks that point to the unexpected being possible in both our semifinal games. Surprises are not uncommon this time of year, and we could absolutely get some firsts in our league. But besides those fighting to make the Green Bowl, we also have 2 consolation semifinals going on, with 4 teams fighting to make the consolation final. The 8-win Elite Mother Tuckers hosts the 6-win Siamese Dreamcats at Cascade Isle in the first of the consolation semifinals, and since the Elite Mother Tuckers still need a quarterback and to make some moves, the Dreamcats enter with a 79.6% chance to win. This will probably be more like a 55-45 advantage with the quarterback in the lineup, just to let you know. These are both teams out of the Wetlands Verone division, so they played twice, splitting the season series. The Dreamcats won 107.16 and 94.76 in Week 1, and the Elite Mother Tuckers won 115.68 to 91.56 in Week 13. Both fairly competitive games, so this could be a good one too. In the first contest, Ron Jones, Tony Pollard, and the Eagles defense were big reasons for the Dreamcats win. In the second contest, DK Metcalf had over 30 points to lead the elite Mother Tuckers, while Jones was out with an injury and the Eagles defense had negative points for the Dreamcats. In this one, the Cats get Ron Jones back from injury with a good matchup against Carolina. Tony Pollard has a great matchup against Miami, and the Eagles defense gets an amazing matchup against the Giants. But DK Metcalf gets a great matchup against Tennessee. Some other areas to watch: Brock Purdy versus whoever the Mother Tuckers choose at quarterback, and CeeDee Lamb versus A.J. Brown. The 7-win Multiple Scoregasms hosts 4-win Loki Lebowski Thor at the abandoned villages of Badenoch in another Consolation semifinal. Lebowski Thor needs to make a move in his flex position, but the Scoregasms enter with a 65.5% chance to win. Scoregasms play in the Peaks of Ulk division and finished a game back in the standings, just missing the playoffs. Lebowski Thor is a surprise opponent here, as they were the worst team in the league all year out of the Flatlands of Skell division. The funny thing is that Lebowski Thor's best game of the year came in Week 11, a 120.18 to 103.2 loss to the Scoregasms. Trevor Lawrence and Saquon Barkley were the differences in that one, and they're in the lineup again here, and they will need to outduel Jalen Hurts and Devin Singletary. Amon-Ra St. Brown versus Calvin Ridley, Jake Ferguson versus Evan Ingram, and the 49ers defense versus the Steelers are other areas to watch. James Cook also has been trending up and could help the Scoregasms build an early lead on Saturday. This should be a great weekend to set up our championship week. We will find out who will be in the Green Bowl. Who's it going to be? Will it be two newbies? Will we have a squad going for a second title? Will the top seeds even survive? One thing I've learned is to just expect the unexpected, so just sit back and enjoy the carnage. And that's the show for the week! Hope you enjoyed it! We got 2 more weeks of episodes coming your way with our theme story really heating up to the finish here of this season. Who's going to be the chosen one? We'll have to see. Before you go, check out the updated playoff brackets. Until next time, salute.